Hey everyone, Sean here. Actually, it's not Sean. It's AI pretending to be me. Although it's not really pretending to be me because I am telling it what to say. Me? Who can really say who is who or what is what? Anyway, my MacBook shit the bed and I am unable to process this week's episode as I normally would. Did you know it takes Apple 3 to 5 days to fix a fucking brand new MacBook Pro? Brand new, with Apple Care Plus. Well, it does, and I threw a tantrum in the store. So anyway, this week we ended up taking a minor detour from Japan Yuri, but for good reason. Cinematographer and director Brandon Trost joined the show, and it turned into an amazing episode that lasted so long we had to push out our Grudge episode another week. When you find out someone worked on the set of Uncle Rumple, it just opens up the floor to so many questions. So enjoy this super special episode. I really loved it so much, and I can't wait to have Brandon on again. Remember, our live show is January 24th at 9 p.m. Eastern, and we are doing Sadako versus Kayako. I guess that's all I have to say. Enjoy.
He's always asking why I like watching people die, and why I give my kicks while others scream and cry. And my friends think that I'm sick, or maybe uneducated, and my family doesn't want to admit that they are related. Now monsters and madmen who rape and mutilate are perfect entertainment when I take her on a date. You can shove and spark the vampires like family comedies. Give me blood and beast and booze and take the triple B's. Don't ask me why, 'cause I don't know. Don't close your eyes, enjoy the show. 'Cause I'm a gore, hellbound horror movie lover. I like my voyeurism with a glass of red rum. 'Cause I'm a gore, hellbound horror movie lover. Good and evil are just colors.
All right, everybody. Hello and welcome to the Horror Show. We have a super special episode this week. We are talking to prolific cinematographer, director of photography, special effects assistant, and director, Brandon Trost. Brandon, how are you tonight?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Thanks for
no,
coming.
thanks for coming on. I'm super excited to talk to you. It's interesting. You've had all of these roles, positions. I don't know what they call it. What would they call it? Roles.
Roles, yeah,
Jobs.
job. Yeah.
Yeah. uh what so let's just get into it. What first drew you to filmmaking? Was there like movies or directors, or was it more of a family thing? I know your family has it's a long line of people that were involved in movies and acting.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I very much grew up in a film family. Like you said, my dad, my dad was sort of the spearhead for all that as a kid. I mean, for sure. My dad does special effects, but not like computer effects, but like on camera, physical, mechanical effects. So like wind, rain, fire, blood, all that stuff, explosions. So, when you have a dad who has that kind of a job as a kid, it's kind of hard not to think it's the coolest thing in the world. I
Oh,
mean, so,
100%.
like you just kind of grow up thinking that that's what it is, and because of his just influence with what he did, I mean, I immediately just kind of drew to movies just in general. He I'm pretty sure I didn't have any kind of rating restriction as a kid, which I look back on now. I'm like, maybe that was a mistake, maybe not. But like, we'd be watching like RoboCop or something like that, and be like, "See this? This is all fake. This is how you do this. This is how you do that. That's how this happens. And this is, there's somebody standing over here holding this thing." And it's funny, you'd think that as a kid or anybody that would just kind of spoil the magic. But for me, it just kind of made me even more interested. I was like, wow, that's how you make this stuff. Like this is how movies are made. This is amazing. And then, I got to go to sets with him as a kid to different like TV shows to be working on or movies. And, and I'm talking like young, like 5 years old. And I'm like, okay, this is it. I just know that I'm going to be making movies. This is just, I'm not going to do anything else. And it's all kind of baked into my family too. I mean, my grandpa was a first AD, and my grandma was in stunts, and my great grandpa was a stunt guy. Like, I have a great uncle who was an actor. Like my sister's a costume designer. My brother's a filmmaker. I mean, we're all sort of in it in this way. The interesting part is that I thought I wanted to do effects just like my dad. I came up, all through even into high school thinking I'm gonna take over my dad's company and be an effects guy. And the thing is that I think I was such a diehard fanatic about movies. I think my dad was the one who even recognized that more than I even noticed. He's like, "Look, I love special effects. This is a great career. I love my job. It's like it's afforded me, my life and this and that. But it's like I gotta tell you, it's with the advent of visual effects and computers and this and that, like it's sort of not a completely dying industry. I mean, I work with effects guys in every movie that I do, effects people, but like he said, "Look, the way you talk about movies, the way you like dissect them, the way you pick it apart, he's like, half the time I have no idea what you're even talking about how these movies are being made." And I was just like a teenager. He like kind of set me aside at one point. It's like, "You kind of remind me of some really good DPs I've worked with in the past." And I was like, "I don't know what it is, but there's something about you and what your kind of thought process and approach is like, you should check it out." I don't know. I'm not saying no, don't do this thing you've been wanting to do your whole life, but I looked into it and kind of, not quite blindly. I was like, this seems rad. I have more creative control. I get to be more a part of like being in the kind of mix of making the movie from the ground up. And I went to film school
That's awesome.
for cinematography. And that's sort of started that trajectory for me. But I can say it was effects and gore and explosions that really kind of turned me on to the whole thing in the first place, which is crazy, but real.
I think that's well, maybe not most filmmakers, but I think most fans of film, that's where it starts, is all of that magic
Yeah.
where you're like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
And we'll get
Can
into
I
the film school thing here in a second, but
can I just ask real
real
quick because you were talking about movies you dissected as a teenager? Are there any in particular that stand out to you that just
I don't
completely
know.
drew you to them?
I mean, I was such a, I mean, I was so, I was, Jesus, born in 81. So like all the 80s movies were very much a big deal for me and in the early 90s as well. But like, I mean, Verhoeven, RoboCop, I don't think I've seen a movie more than Total Recall, to be honest. Aliens, specifically anything James Cameron ever touched. I mean, I was very much into big kind of popcorn, sci-fi, action, fantasy. I mean, Conan the Barbarian is still just my favorite movie. It's just like all these movies that I grew up on. Um, I mean, First Blood, uh, that Predator. I mean, all these movies that I kind of grew. These were the foundational films for me as a kid, like a little kid, which is
yeah.
crazy. But
Did dad have to explain that Quado was not real to you, or did you kind of pick up?
no, he was right there saying that it was a puppet with a fake body on somebody. And then his backside was probably on a table, and there was some like puppet underneath it. I was like, "Oh my god, this is great!"
The three breasts set
Yeah,
a precedent that will never,
did.
never.
It
Dad,
definitely,
don't spoil it for me. I don't even want to know. It's like Santa. Like, don't. No, I'm good. Gonna keep pretending this one's real.
it definitely.
I was born in '85, so not too long after. And yeah, Total Recall was very important in my formative years.
Oh man, big time! I got to work with Michael Ironside at one point on a short, like a weird like horror short years ago, and like all I could do was just not ask him questions. um, and it was just anytime that kind of situation pops up. I mean, got Highlander. I got to work with Christopher Lambert on one movie, and it was like,
Oh, that's
holy
sick.
shit! I got to film him wielding a sword, and I was just like, my
Fuck.
brain was, it was just every once in a while these little nuggets will come out, and it's it's just glorious. But yeah, it's all because of that.
That's amazing.
So, for the uninformed, which is me also, can you describe the difference for everyone? Because I think there's a lot of confusion. Again, maybe it's just me. Uh, between cinematographer and director of photography. What do those roles look like? What's the difference on those?
There is no difference. They're the same thing.
Okay.
It's it's I don't know how the title gets mixed up. Sometimes it's cinematographer. I think I'm always credited as director of photography. I think that's sort of traditional these days.
Yeah.
But I mean, cinematographer is kind of like the, I don't know, artsy way of describing the same job, I suppose. I don't know. I always feel like a little more of an asshole saying I'm a cinematographer instead of just director of
Yeah.
photography. But it's the same. there's no difference, and it's
Okay.
just I mean, in terms of I'm assuming what what that job is. I mean, it's I'm the camera guy, cameras and lighting. It's really kind of like the nuts and bolts of it when it comes down
Right.
to it.
Right. It's a lot of technical stuff in that too. There's it's almost, I don't want to say scientific, but I feel like there's like a science behind it.
There is. I think that's part of what it's funny. It wasn't exactly what drew me to it, but it's what I learned to love about it was how technical it is, how
Yeah.
just how precise and specific it is. But like, there's so much of the job that is purely just instinct and taste, and just kind of like you know there really is an artistic side of it that you can apply to it as much as you want, and then you can kind of drill into that even more. It's like, how, and then it's like, how's this movie going to look? How's this movie going to feel? How's this scene going to feel? What's the story we're trying to tell? It's like, how do you direct the audience to look at this part of the frame to tell this part of the story so that it connects to the next part?
That's
It's
cool.
how to understand the editing and how the shots are going to cut together, and how to help influence an entire crew in terms of like getting everyone on the same page with you know colors and tones and just ideas for how you want the movie to be made. There's there really is a lot that goes into it, and uh, it's it's interesting. It's like, and I've learned some. I mean, I've learned so much since I began, obviously, but I would say that like even when I was in film school, I feel like I had kind of a knack for setting up a frame that just kind of felt like a movie to me. But I think that's just because I was a movie nerd. I was like, okay, that's the shot where it looks like Die Hard. Okay, great, let's do this. And, and I couldn't even articulate why, but I can now, just because it's like it's what I do and it's what I've always done now at this point. But it's I mean, man, the job's fun also. It's like you're working on different movies. I like to work on different genres, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to, and work with so many different great people and different perspectives, and you're always in a different location, different place. I mean, it's such a wide variety uh is applied to just your everyday job in this
Y-
case, and I
Yeah.
don't love it.
Yeah, that was actually going to be one of my questions later on, was it just seems like it gives you the ability to kind of do whatever you want. And I feel like some directors either get pigeonholed or they're like, "Well, I'm good at this. I'm just going to keep doing this one thing." And it
Yeah.
seems like as a director of photography, you've been able to bounce all over the place
Yeah.
and do anything you want.
Somehow I have, and not everybody gets that. A lot of, there's plenty of DPs who get pigeonholed as well, where it's like
Oh,
they're
interesting.
the action dude. This is the romantic comedy person, or whatever. And it's I think that, I mean, lately I've definitely just been like the comedy guy, like that, just because of movies that I've done. But I'm still always trying to sneak in different
Yeah.
movies in here and there. It's like, it's like I just had Sonic 3 come out, but I also did Night Bitch, which is like totally different. And it's I think it's that at least being able to have that variety also keeps you on your toes a little bit too, because it's easy to get kind of complacent in something. You're like just not as if you're good at it, sure, but maybe you're just you know it so well, it just becomes easy. So it's like, okay, this and that. All right, we're ready to go. It's there's no real like um you can fall into a trap of just like knowing like this looks fine and it's telling a story and this is great. But it's I don't know. Every time I've always been the most proud of something I've done, I've been a little bit scared of what I was doing because I didn't know if it was going to work. Uh, just you know, I think that's part of it, and I think it's making some bold choices that have really helped me jump around to different types of movies. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Brain
That's
I
great.
ideas.
do. Can I just say real quick? My kids are so excited that I'm talking to you because of Sonic 2 and 3 and
Oh,
work on
awesome.
the Knuckles. I told them I was talking to the guy that was involved in that, and they're the biggest fans in the world. So just wanted to
Uh,
put that out there.
I love Sonic, man. I mean, speaking of like being able to jump around in a lot of different looks, we did it a bit in Sonic 2, but Sonic 3, we're doing like scene to scene, like we're different kinds of movies all over that place. I mean, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but it's like,
I have the flashback scene, the space scenes.
yeah,
You got the
space
dance
scenes.
off with the lasers. So, yeah,
Yeah, like the crazy, like almost wild horror stuff when they're like, look, there's such a variety within the movie, and it's such a great team of people. It's just really fun to work on,
yeah, it
and
looks
it's
amazing. Yeah.
unbelievably challenging. It's like it's bonkers how much goes into just one frame of that on any of those movies with people acting with characters that aren't there. And on Sonic 3, sometimes there's 4 characters that don't exist in the same frame, but you've got humans talking to them also. And you have to anticipate where the characters will move eventually, and they all glow and like emit light. So you have to have like interactive lighting with everything.
Oh,
It's
that's so
very,
interesting. I didn't even think about that.
very
Yeah.
technical. And then on part 3, Jim Carrey plays 2 people. So we have to
Two
like
people. Yeah.
the split. It's a lot. And it's a real brain buster, but it's really rewarding because it's fun, and it's like you're working with nice people, which is always
Yeah.
it's kind of what's attractive to me at this point.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And that's what drew me to the Sonic movies, because obviously my kids want to see them, and I like Sonic, but how good they looked, I was just like, holy shit, like this is amazing. So
That's awesome.
kudos. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's a blast. Happy to be there with those guys. you know. But yeah, so geez, I forget where I was what I was talking about. Uh where are we at?
Well, we can hop in. No, it's all right. It's
Yeah.
like the I mean, the passion is there for sure. I could tell. Um, so we we can talk about why don't so let's go back and we'll kind of like kick through this. It's funny because in my head, I was like, okay, we're going to talk about your film school days, and then we'll go into I have it here, career starting with special effects, and we found out right before that you were 12 on some of these credits that I have listed here. So we'll work our way through it. But yeah, we worked producer Lexi has been working with the LA Film School, and that's how we were able to reach out to you, which was great. And we appreciate them. And so if we can, you went well, I guess we'll still start with the school here and then go backwards. But uh, you went to LA Film School. You went straight after high school?
I did. I went almost directly in. To be honest, I went like college. I went to like a community college for like 2 seconds, like thinking, okay, I'll do this, and then go to like a UCLA or a USC or something like that. Film school. I knew
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to do. But while I was doing that, I discovered the LA Film School like online somehow. I don't like it. Somehow I like stumbled across it, and this is a lot. I mean, this is 1999. It's a long time ago. They had just opened, and there was some sort of like opening event, and it just sort of raised my awareness because they seemed to kind of check the box for me for what I was after. I knew I wanted to be in film school. I'm like, I want film school now. This kind of was like my attitude about it. And they were, at the time when they first started, they were almost more of a trade school.
Oh,
They're
that's cool.
they're a fully like accredited, school at this point with full courses and the whole thing. But like at the time, it was only like a 10-month long intensive program. So it was
Oh,
close to
interesting.
like it was closer to like a New York Film Academy or like a Full Sail or something like that. Like when it first.
Right. Yeah,
And
that's cool.
I was like, okay, great, great. I can just go and do that and learn, and then I'll be off and running. And it really, for me, it was great. It was like, I remember the first day you get there, they put a camera in your hands and say, "Here, shoot a short, tell a story with this camera right now." I'm like, wow, okay, yes, let's do this. It's very hands on for me, and that was really kind of what I think that's how my brain just works still probably, but like
Yeah.
it was. We were also like the first class there. I was technically the second class because they were like alternating every 2 months. There was a new class would come in. So I think by the time I got in there, I was I don't know. There's like maybe like 20 students total, in the whole place, and so we kind of had the run of the whole facility and all the gear that they had. And granted, it was like still up and coming, and still sort of brand new, and sort of working out their own kinks. But we were happy to be there to sort of help establish some of those policies, by like
Yeah.
taking out cameras and just doing anything that we could. It was really it was unique, I think, with the LA Film School, and that it was very there was a lot of freedom, and it's definitely evolved into a more refined school than it was then. But I found it attractive, so I went. I dropped out of dropped out of community college and just went straight to Hollywood and the LA Film School,
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
made a lot of great friends and made a lot of really you know terrible shorts and also some decent ones. And just learn along the way. Um, and I mean, and also when I was done, they hired me to work in like the film rental department, like the equipment rental. So
Okay.
so they were like, because they're so new, they were just getting anybody they could to sort of join the team. And I knew the cameras. I was like teaching classes because I had learned like HD at the time, which is brand new. It was DV, mini DV. That was what we were
Oh,
using at the
I
time. But
remember that. Yeah.
HD was very much brand new, and the F900 was just out. And like I knew it very well, so they like had me teach classes to like new students coming in. I was like, I don't know, 18 and like an idiot, but still doing it. And but I worked in the film school for 3 years after I graduated. So I sort of, and they would let me leave to like go shoot shorts for like a week here, a week there, 3 weeks to go shoot like a tiny movie. Yeah, it was really, honestly, that 3 years after the film school was, it felt like I like sort of robbed an extra 3 years of a film school out of my single year. But it was great, man. I don't know, like I made so many friends and made and networked with so many people over the course of that, I guess that kind of almost 4 years that I was there, uh, that it really, I mean, look, I did the work and practiced and shot as much as I could, and I was doing as anything I could get my hands on. And then that led to just, years of with that same attitude, even once I had to leave the school because I was working enough where I couldn't, like, stay there and have a job
Yeah.
and, like, and get paid. So, I went on from there and shot a lot of more, like, bad stuff until I got some better stuff, and then I had some friends that I went to film school with that got bigger jobs and then got me bigger jobs. It was, um, yeah, I guess it's, a common story, but that was how it sort of rolled out for me. But the school really was like, that sort of, cornerstone for me to get going. That's for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, that obviously goes a long way. Meeting all those people doing with the these same exact passion. That's got to be huge for you on that.
That's what was cool about it too, because like I was right. I mean, I started. I think I was no, I was 18 when I started the school, but it was such a wide variety of people because it was like anyone can come and be a filmmaker, anyone can come and learn, and anyone did. I mean the variety of just the different walks of life that kind of came through, the different people that wanted to be filmmakers. Like it could be, some like young kid out of film school or out of high school like myself, and someone who was in like their 50s, like trying to just start another career because they just needed to do it, and it was awesome. It was such a melting pot of
That's great.
random people, and they also had real like industry professionals there teaching it, teaching the different classes, like, and it was at the time, it wasn't really like they would just hire someone to just stay there and be the teacher. It was like, "Yeah, I'm not working right now, so I'll be a teacher for like 6 months." And like you'd get like these awesome instructors. I remember, I mean, God, like my production design teacher was Larry Paul, who did like Blade Runner and Back to the Future and stuff like that. Like it was
Holy
pr-
shit.
shit, did he do Back to the Future? I can't remember if he did Back to the Future or if he said he tried to get it and didn't get it. But yeah, I know he did Blade Runner. Anyway, uh it was, and we would get to go on like field trips because they're working professionals. They're friends with people who are working like down the street at like the lot, and we would go and visit sets, and we had all these awesome, just really just exceptional opportunities. It was great. I don't know, just waxing poetic on the good old days. The I mean, gosh, so many great teachers. I mean, and cinematography as well. I mean, um, Rex Metz was a great teacher. He was a cinematography. He did a lot of second unit, like he did second unit on Jaws and stuff like that. Back in the, he was like a kind of a shooter from like the 70s, and he had that kind of 70s cameraman swagger that I recognized from just being on sets as a kid, seeing all those kind
Yeah.
of older generation filmmakers. uh,
Yeah.
but then there was like, there were younger people that came through too. Like at the time, Michael Barrett came through, and he was young then too. I think he might have been in his 20s when he was teaching us, and he went on to go and he got like CSI when that first happened. And then he went off and had kind of an amazing career. But he was a wonderful teacher. David Klein was another great teacher who was on the younger side. Like, he's shooting all the Star Wars series now, basically. I mean, he was
Oh, that's wild.
David Klein started out as yeah, he worked a lot with Kevin Kevin Smith and all like Clerks and Mallrats and stuff like that.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of good people. And then there's just the people that work there just at the facility itself. I mean, Joe Byron is kind of like he's sort of like this fixture there at the school. He's retired and isn't there anymore, but he was like this kind of I don't know, kind of film student whisperer. He's like this like philosopher of a man who was like, is he a tech teacher? Is he like the equipment guy? Is he the he was like the film guru of the school. He was sort of like the most I don't know, supportive person that I can remember even being around there. But yeah. Anyway,
That's awesome. I mean, that's great. Thank you
No,
for
yeah, thank you.
filling us in on that. So yeah, so again, we had this mixed up, so we thought you went to film school first and then maybe did special effects. But you started special effects with your dad, and you were on some movies that we talk about regularly on the show and have become staples of our listeners. Like they send us VHS tapes in the mail of Rumpelstiltskin and Bats and Ghoulies 4. You are credited on also.
Bats caught his attention. Though I got to hear this.
I was gonna say Bats weirdly is incorrect. I don't know why
Oh.
Bats is actually on my IMDb. It somehow appeared like
Hey.
it was like dozens of years ago, and I've been trying to get it removed. I don't know why it's still there, but that one is not true. The other ones
Oh.
are. I'm sorry.
I was
Um,
hoping because I was talking to Joe and
but
Lexi before you got on, and I was like,
Louis
I don't
Four.
know. Was he just
Louis Four.
throwing rubber bats around? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know if I want to bring that up.
Yeah.
How was Ghoulies 4? How's your experience on that set?
You know, geez, my dad was doing God, Ghoulies 4. I don't even know if I got to see any of the puppets, to be honest, if I remember right. Like when I was working on it, my dad was like doing some like lots of. I remember there was a shootout in like a mini mart or something like that, and I helped him like load up a whole bunch of squibs and stuff to just like blow the shit out of this like store, and it was a huge giant mess. And I remember when it was all done, my dad was like, "All right, we're out of here." I'm like, "Wait, who's gonna clean this up?" He's like, "Ah, our department's got that. Let's go." I'm like, "Oh my god, okay, cool. That's how this works." Um, but it was just like I remember it being bloody too. You know, I think there was I feel like there was just guns and guts around. I feel like I saw the movie too, but it's been since like it came out, so I don't even remember what happens
Is
in
that
the
the one
movie.
they go to college or no?
No, that's
Joe.
3.
Oh,
4,
3.
yeah, 4 is it's like a totally different direction. It's Jim Wynorski that directed that one. I don't think
Wow.
I don't even know if band was involved. The band, the father and the son. I think it was just Jim.
Oh, okay. He just went
The,
off on his own.
I only remember that one. It might have been a couple of days. It was like somewhere downtown LA that we were shooting that piece. But Rumpelstiltskin, I weirdly remember more, and I think it might have happened first. But the yeah, God, I remember being so excited because the dude playing Rumpelstiltskin was like what was it? One of the core. What was the characters from Star Trek? The that had like the big ears around their head.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah,
about. Oh
the dude
shit.
was in that, and he was a henchman in the Rocketeer. And I remember being like, oh, this dude is like, I'm like 11 or 12 or something like that. So I'm like, this guy's I'm gonna get to meet this guy. Of course I meet him, but he's in full makeup, he's got sharp teeth and like contacts in his eyes, and he can't see anything. But it was so surreal. I feel like we shot a lot in like Malibu Canyon. Like it was all just very like hammery style horror stuff that we were doing. I mean, I remember it being a big deal because the DP, this is one of the first times I knew that there was a DP. The DP was the same guy that had shot Full Metal Jacket, I think. I think
Dude.
I remember being like, whoa, or no, was it that? Or did he shoot Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves? I can't remember, but it's like that was one of the first times I knew what like I was aware of a DP because he had shot something like fancy. And I remember there was like at one point they had built like a little castle set on a hill, and they actually put like a big moon, like an actual backlit like translight moon, like in the forest and lit it so you can actually see the moon in the skyline. And this is stuff I was picking up on as a kid as I was running through the woods with a smoke machine, like blasting smoke in the woods, uh, working all nighters as like a 12-year-old kid, which I don't think is legal. But hey, I was there.
You were saying there's a great picture of you and your dad out there, right? From the
Yeah, there's
set.
a picture of me just like running around with. We have these things called mole guns, which I don't know if you're allowed to use anymore. There's so much there's so much equipment and gear in movies that everyone used to, and they were designed for fumigating. I think fumigating bugs out of trees. So you can imagine it's not really great for like lungs on set and stuff like that. But that's what we were doing, and yeah, we were doing that. It was a bunch of all nighters. I mean I loved it. It was great. And then Rumpelstiltskin. God, weirdly, I hadn't thought about Rumpelstiltskin in years, and just recently I saw that they had like released the soundtrack for the movie, like the score, because I guess the score was done by someone that is like some sort of cool horror um,
Yeah.
poser, which I don't know if you guys know who it is or not, but it just weirdly like came across like some feed or something, and I was like, oh my god, people are talking about this movie, Rumpelstiltskin.
Oh,
Crazy,
I think it got like a big re-release, which again, it's funny because
really?
when we covered it like I don't even know 9 or 10 years ago, and it was like,
Wow.
and it felt like at the time people were like, "What are you talking about?" And but that movie, I loved as a kid. I was obsessed with that movie as a kid, which is why it was one of our first episodes. Was because I was like, "We have to talk about this movie, Rumpelstiltskin." It was like a fever dream from like when I was young, and I was like, "I need to talk. I need to rewatch this and talk about it."
And
So
that movie, it's scored by Charles Bernstein, who did Nightmare on Elm Street. He did Cujo. He did Deadly Friend. So yeah, he's
oh,
definitely a big name.
Yeah, I think that's why that must be why it popped up because I mean, to be totally fair, I haven't seen the movie since it was on VHS, and it's been a long time, so I barely even remember the movie itself or the music. But it piqued
Sure,
my interest enough to want to like check it out again just to see.
I highly recommend it.
I
It's
have the
Mhm.
incredibly
VHS
fun.
somewhere around here. Yeah, no, that's that's awesome. Uh,
You worked on
so
American Pie too, as well during that time you were in film school.
I was in film school, and occasionally my dad would get a job and he'd be like, "Hey, come down and hang out for a day and do some smoke or something," and he might like I can't remember if he was paying me under the table or not. He might have been, but yeah, American Pie. We were where was I? I think I was in like a locker room scene doing steam or something like that. It's like but it's before any of those kids like got famous. It was American Pie. It was wild. It's funny. What's funny is like when that movie came out. I mean, I think it was like right after I had graduated high school, so it was like so much more. It was like right exactly in line with like my whole like generation, which is crazy. Of
Yeah, I was
course,
a
for me,
freshman in high school. Yeah,
yeah, for me, it was just like some movie my dad was doing. Like, yeah, okay, I'll come by. And then it just turned out to be
that's awesome.
American Pie. That happened a couple times. I mean, my dad did. I mean, it's not horror involved, but my dad did Rushmore also, and
Oh
I was
wow,
oh,
I was with him on Rushmore the whole movie. I was part of the crew on that movie. Like it was in Houston, Texas, and I was like, I had no idea who Wes Anderson was. I didn't know the movie was going to be any good, let alone be like great. And it was just like it was neat to just be there for all of that. It was such a I've had a couple of those little, surprising, eye-opening moments, I suppose.
that's
yeah. I don't
amazing.
know
Yeah.
if Wes Anderson knew who Wes Anderson was going to be at that point either. I think he was still figuring that out.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the time, Bottle Rocket was out, so people knew about that, but
Oh,
I
that's
didn't.
true. Yeah.
And so I knew that people were excited about that, but I was like, "What's that?" I mean, I was just like a popcorn movie kid. I had no idea what even independent movies really were at the time. you know? Um, oh man, I'm in Rushmore if you see it too. There's a Vietnam War play at the end of the movie, and I'm a Vietnamese soldier who fires a rocket launcher on the
Oh,
plane. Somebody.
It's fucking awesome.
Speaking of, but it was effects related because I was the effects dude's kid. I got to like like an actual like flash bomb on
yeah. They're
a
like,
rock.
yeah, I'll give it to him.
Yeah,
He can handle
like, I technically got stunt pay for it. It's pretty funny.
it.
Just
Uh,
real quick on the topic of you being in the movie, you were also in Kazam with Shaquille O'Neal, correct? As a
yes, was.
student.
I was that was the summer of '95. Yeah, I was. My dad was on that movie, and I remember being stoked because Shaquille O'Neal was in it,
Shaquille. Yeah.
and I was there like all summer, man, just mooching on the set and hanging out with my dad, and making like candy bars rain out of the sky, and putting Shaquille O'Neal on like gimbals to like fly around on magical bikes and doing sparks out of like the boombox that he would be in. Like it was wild, man. But yeah, I was like because I was the age. I think I was 14. Like I got into the extras. I was an extra. I was like in a high school. I'm in a classroom. You can see me like throwing a baseball up against a wall at like recess or something. I don't know. It's just like stupid stuff. Um, but Kazam, yeah. I mean, even when I was there on set, I was like, man, what is this movie? Like, it's just like, what's going on? I was even as like a 14-year-old kid, I'm like, how is this movie getting made right now? What is this? Uh, but it was fun. I have such fond memories of being on that. I remember being making buddies with Francis, the main kid. Shit, what did he go on to do? The lead kid in Kazan, we ended up being buddies with. I remember we had a PlayStation and Mortal Kombat 3 had just come out, and that was like we would like go crazy on just like playing Mortal Kombat 3 nonstop. It was the best. Old days.
That's amazing. He went on to be in Veronica Mars. He had a
Right.
pretty
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Man. Yeah, you guys are really drilling down on some old stuff up in a long time.
I don't know, like our minds are stuck in there. Like,
We were literally talking about American Pie last week on the show, just coincidentally, just because this is
on an episode about the Ring, so there's no reason to bring American Pie up, but that's just how the brain works. You know?
Why not?
just how it operates. And actually, Lexi had asked me to ask you because we were a little bit younger when American Pie came out. I was in middle school, I guess, if Joe
I was a freshman.
So we were a bit younger, but I distinctly remember when that movie came out, the epidemic that's
Yeah.
her words, the epidemic of people that were like, hey, can you fuck things in your kitchen? And
Oh my
like
God.
the rumors of that spreading around high schools of people trying it. And I was like, it was a thing. It was a thing. And
That
Lexi was like,
that
ask him if
movie
he knows about
that movie did not age well. Oh my God. It is like so toxic. It's gnarly. Like, it's so yeah, that movie can never be made again.
No. And Eugene
Probably.
Levy just constantly walking in on his son, like doing the most bizarre sexual shit. And it's just like, what is happening?
Oh man, there are some consent issues, that's for sure. But
I haven't seen it in a while, so
it's yeah, it would never be made again.
problematic.
Yeah, problematic word.
Problematic.
But still remembered fondly. Funny.
So yeah, so we could let's go into like some of the more recent stuff with your cinematography. I guess we'll start, especially our listeners, obviously, with the horror podcast. Also, they know that we're going to go into some other weird stuff, but we got to start here with the two that stuck out in your credits for me and probably our listeners is Halloween 2 and Lords of Salem, working for Rob on two movies that have very different vibes.
Yeah.
I could imagine. So and Joe's a big music guy, so but how do you did some work with Rob prior to these and then you did these, or was this the first experience with Rob, was Halloween 2?
Halloween 2 was my first experience with Rob. I mean, shit, bringing it back to Kazam. I remember for my birthday, all I wanted was Aster Creek 2000. Like, that was like a big deal. It's crazy.
I was going to ask you if you're into White Zombie.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was always just a huge like metal kid growing up. I mean, still, and I was just excited to. I was so excited just to meet the dude. I mean, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I don't totally remember how I got the meeting. I think that it was my third. No, it was my second studio movie. So the first studio movie I did was Crank 2, High Voltage with Jason Statham. Getting into LA Film School, so those directors I went to film school with, and they helped me get Crank 2. So that was a big sort of leg up, and it just kind of it funnels into Halloween 2 because I mean, shit, I was young. I was 26, and it was like I shot my first studio movie, which was awesome and just so fortuitous. But like what I realized all of a sudden is like once you've done one studio movie, it's like you're kind of like it's almost like a door opens. You're sort of letting the club. Like you're not going to be shooting $100 million movies necessarily, but it's like you're taken serious all of a sudden. I'm just used to shooting like, indie movies that are of varying quality. and 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 then that movie came along, and it really changed things. And then that kind of I had wrapped Crank, and then we kind of funneled right into Halloween too. Somehow I had gotten I think I'd got I don't know if I got an I think I'd just gotten an agent for the first time, and like I think there was a line producer or somebody who knew of me from some of my, sorry, this is such a roundabout thing, Neo Art and Logic days. So I used to shoot with this company that worked with Dimension a bunch, and I shot these like I remember doing these movies, Pulse 2 and 3, these Japanese American remakes of these Japanese movie Pulse. I did the two sequels that were, we made them. And and I had done another movie with them, with Christian Slater, that actually was not horror based, but turned out really good. But I think that because of that sort of like horror loop, someone tossed my name into the mix to meet Rob, and I was like, great, yes, I'm going to meet the guy. And I don't know, I was like, I know he's a rock and roll dude. I've seen him in some interviews. I know he's a smart guy. I know he's like super into rock and roll, this and that. Like, uh, I remember I went into the meeting wearing have you ever heard of the band Turbo Negro? I don't know if you've ever heard of this band
Yeah,
Oh
before.
yeah.
I got erection. Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, kind of like a death punk band from Norway. And I was such a huge fan. I had their like club jacket. They have like a Turbo Yugen jacket. It's like this like jean jacket that has like the symbol on the back and like your name on it. I'm like, I don't know. I'll try to be a cool music guy. Maybe that'll give me a leg up. I don't know if it did. I think it did. But uh anyway, I went in and we just hit it off. He's you know, he's incredibly smart. He's a super talented artist. He was very specific about what he wanted Halloween to be, and I knew it was going to be different from Halloween that I knew because of the first Halloween that he made. I mean,
Right.
I had seen it, and knew that he was just taking it in a totally different way than John Carpenter ever did. And fans either loved it or they really didn't like it. It was interesting to kind of even then know that sort of kind of divisive, at least from a horror fandom
Sure.
sort of perspective. So I was curious, and then we got into it. And I remember you saying like he told me he didn't have a great experience working on the first Halloween. It was like studio interference, this and that. Like there's a bunch of different like things that added to this recipe of him not having a good time making this movie. And I think he wanted to use this as an opportunity to kind of correct that and kind of get to where I think he wanted the first one to be. And I knew I had seen, of course, Devil's Rejects and House of a Thousand Corpses, so I knew about his sort of like his style. It's so rough around the edges. I mean, it's like it's it's abrasive. It's abrasive, the whole thing, and it's something that I think people either get and they're into, or they're just really not. And I was excited. I mean, again, I'd never done anything like that before. I was like, let's see what we can do. And he wanted to shoot 16. I was like, great, I love 16. Let's do 16. He wanted he wanted it to be very, he wants to be able to shoot like, he wanted to be able to shoot like every direction at once if he could. We shot two cameras always, but it's challenging when you're trying to light for one shot or trying to make it look its best. You're trying to make it look, I don't know, whatever you've decided the movie's going to look like. You're always like going toward that goal, that it's like a rule set that you get into, and you want it to look the best. And it's like if you're going to look every different direction, it's really difficult to put like movie lights in places where you can kind of get the best looking shot. But he wanted this very realistic sort of almost, I don't even know if he said like unlit, but I sort of knew what he meant. He wanted it to be very like raw and dirty and gritty. I mean, the movie's like uh the movie's very much like it's like a look into like PTSD and just
Yeah.
like how someone's really been like through something that has just absolutely destroyed their life mentally, and how they deal with that and how they crumble from it. And I thought that was such a unique perspective to put on like a slasher movie. I hadn't seen that before. And I think that um even still, that concept was met with it had a mixed reception, when it came out, because it was not Halloween, it was this other thing. But it was the movie that I think we always wanted it to be from the get-go, which I was stoked about. We both were stoked about it. I remember having conversations with Rob after the movie came out, and people were like, at least I mean, there definitely were people that liked it, but for the people that were shitting on it, were like, man, we think everyone's just wrong. I feel like people that come back years later and say this movie's good, and I feel like that's been happening a lot, since
Yeah.
since.
Yes.
It
I was gonna
has.
say that. I was
Times.
gonna say that. Yeah.
Um, but man, that movie was. I mean, ultimately, I got the job. I mean, I remember getting the phone call from Rob. He was like, "Hey, man, so you want to do this thing?" I'm like, "Yes, yes, let's do Halloween too." And then we shot it in a small town outside of Atlanta. And it was in the wintertime in Atlanta, and believe it or not, it snows there. It was cold as hell, and it was scary. It was a really scary process for me because I was stepping so far outside of my comfort zone while shooting that movie. It was like it was a lot of me almost crossing my fingers that it would work. From a technical standpoint, I was shooting 16 millimeter, and which is makes things just kind of inherently grainy, you know, um, just by the nature of that of the way the film works. And I wanted it grainier, so I did this. I pushed everything to stop, which means you let everything kind of cook in the chemical bath a little bit longer, so it keeps exposing more than what you actually exposed for on the day. When you do that, it brings the image back to where it should be being exposed normally, but it makes the grain even bigger. So it's like, I remember seeing on the big screen, it was like football sized grain on the screen. It was crazy looking. But we liked it. We liked it. I was shooting with very few lights. I remember my gaffer was building lights from like industrial lighting at like Home Depot, and we would just like tack these things onto like telephone poles and trees and shit in the background, and just like let that sometimes be what was the whole light for the scene. Put some smoke in the background, and it was I had to be able to shoot. It's interesting. I was really interested in letting the movie just be ugly, but it was like a controlled ugliness that I thought was really going to kind of tie the whole movie together. Um, and whether or not that's successful, I guess that's subjective. But I'm really proud of how it turned out. I love the tone of Halloween too. I mean, I look back on it today, and it's still one of my favorite looking things that I've shot. Uh, Specifically because of that. It was like this sort of no holds barred version of just leaning into just the darkness. It's dark. It's so dark. I mean, there's some
Yeah.
scenes where, gosh, the opening scene of that movie, which kind of picks up on the tails of the first movie, when Laurie Strode's just like walking in the rain down the street, just like shell shocked after what's happened before Dourif shows up and collects her in the car. There's a scene where she's like walking down the middle of the street, and there's barely any lights. I think it's some street lights and some stuff very deep in the background, but very, very dark. And so dark that I could see an image through the video tap. And the way the video tap works is like as the shutter spins, half the image goes to the video and the other half goes to the eyepiece for the operator to see. And God, my operator BJ, God, who also is a big horror buff, BJ McDonald. I don't know if you know him or have talked to him, but
No.
you should look him up. He's rad. But he comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, Brandon, are you sure this is okay? Because I can't see anything." It's like I look at my eyepiece and it's black. I'm like, uh, it's good. I mean, that scared the hell out of me, to be honest, but I just went with it, and it turned out to be a really awesome looking sequence. But I mean, I was pretty sure it was going to be there. At least something was going to be there, and it was. It was great. But like that, but it was that kind of like fear that I think we kind of consistently, at least I was consistently living in while we were shooting that movie. And getting back into Rob's use of like wanting to shoot from any perspective he can, he likes lots of shots. And we're shooting with two cameras. And, sometimes two cameras is just like two lenses side by side with two different focal lengths just to get two different shots to cut to. But he'd want to do that, or cross shooting, or he'd want to do two cameras side by side. But then, okay, he's like, okay, I got it on this camera. Keep this one here, but move this one over here now. Okay. And like, so we were like trading places all over the place. It was, like the kind of the eye line and the axis was just going out the window. We didn't really care. It was really just about like being found and in the moment. It was almost like documentary style, the way that we were sort of approaching this. And it was fun, man. Like we just sort of just leaned into that idea the whole time. And I mean, Rob's also he's a particular dude. Like he knows what he likes when he sees it. And he'll tell you he doesn't when he doesn't see
Yeah.
it. And I think that some people, I get along with Rob really well, and I love working with him. And I think some people have a difficulty. having that kind of like flexibility with like bringing something forward that might be your idea or your best foot forward or your shot, and then having him shoot it down in a way where it's like it's not. He'll say it's like. I mean, he'd probably say it to me because we're friends. Like, this looks like shit. This isn't supposed to be like this. I'm like, okay, well, why? Let's figure this out. Let's do this. And like, it's like, let's just like stick more shit in the foreground and do a longer lens. And maybe I need like a red color in the background. Okay, cool. Did it. We would do it quickly. Um, it's difficult for some people to kind of work with that. So I think he has a core group of people that we work with that all sort of know his style and his approach because it's all like based on his feeling. Like it's what he feels and how it needs to work. And he's so like uh committed to it. I remember he always gets to set like way early. He'll get to set like before the Teamsters do, which is nuts. And he'll just like sit on the set, stare at the set dressing, no, and I can't tell you how many times I show up and it's like, oh, Rob's already been here for an hour and he's spray painting the bedroom, doing something kind of crazy. I'm like, wait, what? Like, he's like in there in his t-shirt, like tearing stuff and doing this, just trying to make it like feel correct. And it's awesome because like he really does. He has an idea and he cares about it a lot. So Halloween 2 was it was wonderful in that way. And then it couldn't weirdly be any more different than how we shot The Lords of Salem, as you're
That's the
talking
same,
about.
right? So it's a totally different vibe. And I just want to say that you using the term grainy made me feel so much better because it's a term I use like when I describe something. And I was like, even when I was writing the
It's
questions, I was
real.
like, I don't know if grainy is like a technical term or if he's gonna be like, what are you saying? Like, and I was like, so when you start calling it grainy, I was like, oh yeah, fuck, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, but yeah, Lords of Salem is this totally different vibe on it. And if I remember, it was shot really quickly, I believe.
It was. It was much smaller than Halloween 2. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a Blumhouse movie. So it was
Yeah.
like I want to say it was like a $2 million budget or something like that, maybe less. Something. It was very small. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't remember what Halloween 2 was, but it was,
It was a big
double
one.
digit number.
Yeah.
um, what's interesting though is like, so I do Halloween 2 and then go off and shoot a bunch of other stuff while he's, getting Lords of Salem together. And there was other stuff he wanted to make in the meantime that like that kind of almost came together and then didn't. I remember he was going to make the Blob at one point.
Oh, I remember
I
that
was like
rumor.
getting stoked about and this and that, and
Yeah.
then he'll get he'll get frustrated with some aspect of it, and then just like shift gears and like go, all right, I'm doing this now instead. And it's like Lord of Salem. It's like I didn't even know that was a possibility. Okay, great, let's do
Yeah.
that. Or that he had like this idea kicking around, and so I went off and did a bunch of comedies. Weirdly, like I went right after Halloween 2. I did MacGruber, which is just a totally different.
So good,
Huge,
though.
huge McGruber
So
fan.
good.
Yeah, I mean, same. It's just like, I mean, weirdly, I mean, MacGruber I can almost point to as like the one movie that like changed my life career wise more than any other movie. But because all like everybody that saw that movie in the comedy world was like, that movie looked good. Let's hire this guy. So
That's awesome.
it kind of changed things for me. But the yeah, MacGruber, then it was Ghost Rider 2, and then I was doing That's My Boy, which is a Adam
That's
Sandler movie. Adam Sandler comedy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
With what's the other Adams?
Andy
Andy
Samberg.
Samberg. Yeah.
Yeah.
And which was fun and great, and then couldn't be any. I mean, talking about polar opposites from Halloween 2. I mean, crazy. But we were shooting Halloween. We were shooting That's My Boy in Massachusetts, and at the time, I think Rob's still there. He has a place in Connecticut. So I knew Lords of Salem was coming up, and then I drove down to his place and like hung out there for a weekend, and we just like watched movies and talked about what Lords of Salem was going to be. We knew it wasn't gonna have a lot of money. Rob doesn't at the time also hated digital. Was like, I'm not gonna like. He's like, I want film because that's just what his style and his aesthetic is, and rightly so. But even knowing that it was like, I knew Lords of Salem was coming up for I feel like a while. I remember testing stuff on the red on Ghost Rider 2 privately without telling anybody, thinking, oh, this might be good for Rob's movie when it comes up, stuff like that.
That's cool.
So I pitched that to him because honestly we couldn't really afford to shoot film really well, and like we did shoot on red because it was at the time also the best. The Alexa wasn't out yet, which is like one of those sort of workhorses we work with today, and
Yeah.
among other cameras, but the Red really kind of forced people into digital cinematography in a big way. And I had shot MacGruber with it. And I think I was shooting That's My Boy with a version of Red as well. And there's a trick with the cameras, and this is something that I still do. It's like you can push the ISO, and the ISO is similar to like how I was pushing the film stock on Halloween 2.
Right.
I was able to push, and that's like a 500 speed into 800s. I think I rated it at 800, and that's barely anything. And like in terms of film sensitivity today, because most digital cameras have a base of 800.
Yeah.
But I pushed the old Red One to 3200 ISO, which was massive. It means I could just use like candles and shit to like light scenes and stuff. But it was an old digital camera at this point, so it was to use your term grainy. It was like, but we'll say noisy because that's
Noisy.
what engineers like to say. So it was very noisy, but I was like, I don't care. I want that. Like, we're going to add more to it later anyway. This isn't enough, for our look. And I knew that I wanted it to be anamorphic. Now that I had never shot anamorphic before. Anamorphic lenses were one of my favorite looks for filming. I don't know if you know the difference between spherical and anamorphic, but like if you've seen a John Carpenter movie, like that's anamorphic horror. Like the way that if you've seen like Indiana Jones or Star Wars, like it all has this optically these lenses like squeeze the image to like fill a larger frame on the film negative to make a sharper image, and then it's when it's displayed with a projector, it's like expanded optically. And so with all of that optical squeezing and expanding, you get like weird stuff in the frame that just makes it look the way that it does, which is hard to articulate. But it's like, you'll see stuff that's out of focus that's squeezed into an oval, or you'll see like the horizontal flares that go through the frame. That's all because of the anamorphic elements in the lenses. And I've always wanted to do it, but it's always been, at the time, it had been this thing where, Jesus, you need to have a lot of light because you need to shoot it like a 4. Otherwise, your focus puller is never even going to have a fighting chance of like getting anything in focus because the depth of field is so shallow. Forgive me if this is all technical stuff that you guys don't know what I'm talking about.
No, so it's actually
That's great.
interesting because I told you we were like transitioning into this new video thing,
Yeah.
and I don't know the first thing about it. I've always taught myself everything, so now I'm working with cameras, and so all of this is making sense to me now, and I'm trying to figure out lighting in our studio now. And so when you started talking about ISO and you said like the 3200, I was like, that's fucking
Yeah.
nuts because I'm like trying to keep it at like 500 right now, and it's like, okay, I think this will be okay, but it and obviously we're using much smaller cameras, but yeah, so
He's
hearing these
probably
numbers is
so
crazy.
mad about my lighting. It's like, his eye twitching, seeing how shitty it is.
But it's good for the horror patina. Um, okay, oh yeah, so I was gonna shoot anamorphic on this movie. So that which I knew was gonna just be a good look, but I'm also getting ahead of myself because I skipped over what Rob and I talked about when I drove down to Connecticut to go see the movie. So he was like, I want this to be more registered. I don't know if that's what he said, but that's how I interpreted it. He showed me some movies, some of which I'd seen, some I'd never seen. He was very much like leaning into like early 70s, like European horror. And I was like, wow, okay. So it's like, it was like, this stuff's like pretty static. Like this is a composed frame, and there's like zoom lenses, and it's very like, it's like a slow burn. I was like, remember, I don't know if I said it or I probably did. I was like, sure. Like this is so far outside of what you always talked about. He was like, yeah, this is great. He showed me, which I fell in love with, which was, I mean, for me, my touchstone for Lords of Salem was the Devils. Um, Jesus, why can't I remember the director's name? The Devils. Oliver Reed is the priest.
I know exactly
Franco?
what you're talking about.
No,
Ken Russell.
Yes,
Russell.
of course. So it's this awesome Ken Russell movie. Have either of you seen The Devils?
I have. I watched it this past Halloween. Yeah.
Man, it's so fucked up and fantastic. And the fact that it was a big giant Warner Brothers movie that was made on a studio level in the 70s, and they're literally like, I can't can't remember if the version I saw had the scene with like Christ and the whole thing, but there's a whole X-rated cut and a version that they wouldn't release, and Warner Brothers has basically like written it off. But it's so phenomenally made and composed, and the filmmaking in that movie is just like it's gorgeously grotesque in the way that it's sort of put together. And yeah, we watched that, and that movie just sort of blew my mind because I'd never seen it or even heard of it. And I mean, I've watched it many times since. Um, and of course, like I think we watched Rosemary's Baby. We watched The Tenant. We There was some other stuff too, but it was all very like
On
early
tracks.
Polanski had a
Yeah.
big sort of informed a lot of it for me. And you know, one of my favorite Polanski movies that I had discovered, I remember I don't know, I think I was like a teenager, and his Macbeth came on at one point on like IFC when I was a kid. I don't know if have you seen Polanski's Macbeth? Like that
I
movie's
have
I
awesome.
not.
haven't.
I didn't even know he made it.
It's radical. Like there's it's again, it's just really kind of awesome anamorphic widescreen photography. Like the witches are like just these old, like naked women. They're frightening, and it's like there's a mood in Polanski's Macbeth that is very worth exploring if you haven't seen. But that was something else that that inspired me as well. But it's really just it's just being registered and being specific about what we did. I mean, we used so many slow zooms, and that was something that I pushed for all the time. Uh, but also time was something we didn't have. That was the other thing too. It was like the style we wanted was great, but like you can't shoot that movie in 20 days. And we tried our best. I think we ended up doing a day or two, but we had to be honest, we lost a lot of stuff. There was a lot of stuff that we were going to shoot that we just couldn't do because of time, and it had to just get kind of scratched out, unfortunately. You know, and I think, you know, I know looking back on that now that like just our appetite for that style didn't support our means, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, so you know, but even still, like we would just condense and consolidate. Like I think we still found the story and the movie we were trying to tell. It was just we had all these grand ideas that had to get kind of scaled back and back. But you know, it was so fun. Lords of Salem is still to this day, I think, one of my favorite, if not my favorite looking things I've ever done personally. Like
It's
it's
wild. I mean,
Yeah,
it is cool. And all of those movies you mentioned, you can see it in that movie. And it was definitely a wild departure for what everyone was expecting of Rob. And it's it's interesting, but it still has his stamp on it, which I think you were able to capture really well. And
It does. I love
it's
it. I was kind of I mean, I was hoping that Rob would do some more stuff that kind of would veer into that direction or some other, just kind of, if not that same style, but kind of veering into the different sort of avenues of horror that I know that he's like a million times capable of. And it was just fun to do something different. And what's fun about that movie too is like I feel like Rob and I work really well together. And in Lords of Salem specifically, I felt like we and just our shorthand was really unique. I felt like we were making each other better, which is like a relationship that I'm always sort of striving to find with any director I'm working with. It's like, you know, we're just leveling up ideas to kind of get toward this great thing that we're all sort of just hoping for. But it I really felt like we did something special with that movie. Um and it's regrettably, I have not had a chance to shoot a movie with Rob since. You know, that was a long time ago. That was 2011, I think, when we shot Lords of Salem. It's not without lack of trying. I I've done I've done a handful of music videos with him since, and you know, I think I was gonna do 31, but we were pregnant. I was gonna have a kid, so I couldn't do it. You know, it was like a bunch of like, it's been scheduling issues forever. I was
yeah.
gonna do the Monsters. He called me like, yes, let's do the Monsters. Like we were making the deal. I was gonna go out and do it, and then it was like it was COVID time, so it was an odd time to make a movie. And
Yeah.
as it was gonna happen, the studio like pushed it for some reason. And I was like, oh shit. And then I took another job, and like when it came back around, it just wasn't available, which sucked.
I would have loved to see you do that because the
Yeah.
colors and stuff in that
colors
are
is crazy in that movie.
wild.
Yeah.
It was cool. And look, I think it looked great. I think it turned out awesome. I was just bummed I couldn't do it. I really,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so the COVID thing, I kind of I was thinking about this when I was thinking of questions and stuff because you end up going to you do American Pickle, which you do the cinematography for and direct?
I didn't shoot it. I only directed it.
You
No,
only directed it.
yeah, no,
Okay.
my DP was a guy named John Gulasarian, who's marvelous.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thanks.
But that was so I was like trying to piece this together because it was one of those movies, and I feel like totally correct me if I'm wrong because this is just going off of my memory when I watched it. That came out during COVID, correct? Like it was 2020. Was that one of the first ones where they were like, "Hey, that we're gonna push this to max," and
It
only
was. It was
failed?
well, it was HBO Max then. It
Well,
was the
yeah,
HBO Max flagship movie. So it was a Columbia Pictures Sony movie. Yeah, that's how we made it. It was always sort of at least it was my impression that it was aiming for a theatrical release. And
yeah,
then the as we were finishing the movie, I think I'm trying to just collect my memory of how it all went
yeah,
down. But I'm pretty sure that Sony was like, "Look, this movie's great, but it's also really weird, and we think it would be awesome if we partnered with someone to release this film. Like, maybe we can get like an Annapurna or like an A24 or somebody to be like, release this together, so it gives the movie like that type of I don't know, indie clout energy, so
sure,
that people are more attracted to just the premise because it's just it's a weird movie. It's
yeah,
like a Jewish fairy tale. You know,
yeah.
it's not as I don't think it's a particularly easy sell, but but I love the script, I love the story, I love the kind of heart to it. I mean, that I mean the movie. I love the movie. I'm very proud of how it turned out. Um, but right as we were kind of figuring all that out, COVID hits, you know, and so we're there. Everyone's scrambling to try to understand what to even do right, with the industry life. I mean, it was just so it was wild.
Yeah.
Um, and then Sony made a deal with HBO, which we actually thought was great. It was great because it was HBO's streaming service to be their first movie. We knew it was going to get a lot of attention. It was going to get a lot of focus toward it, and it would reach a lot of people that way, and it did. You know, I think it became a bit of an event when it came out. You know, because it
Yeah, for
was
sure.
one of the only new movies coming out at the time that no one could go to a theater for anyway. So it was this kind of awesome experience, or at least and it was great. And then Warner Brothers decided to just kind of erase it from the the streaming service, and you can't find it anymore. That's the second time Warner Brothers has done it to me. I also shot Coyote versus Acme. I don't know if you know about that. That movie was totally just erased.
Wait,
So
but
that's
I thought that was still coming out, no? Or that's done?
I mean, I think the only way that movie's coming out is if someone like pays Warner Brothers in full what they spent on the movie, and then even then,
That's
that's
so
maybe
such a
they've already written
bummer.
it off in Texas. It is a bummer. I mean, it's a bummer
I
for
had
me.
heard
I love
about
it.
that.
It's great.
I'd
I worked on it for a few months, but I mean, I feel sorry. I mean, Dave, the director, that dude was on it for 3 years, and then the movie just like goes away like
I
nothing. It's a bummer. And
I
it's
hate that part of what's happening now with these like tax write-off things and these streamers and stuff and just deleting movies that people
it's
are
wild.
pouring their life into and it's like they
It's
just
so wild.
disappear.
Yeah,
It's so
but
weird. I'd that was the one where it was going to be a courtroom, right? It was a court case. Was that what it was? Where
yeah,
Coyote was
yeah,
suing Acme because
that's
of
exactly right. The movie, oh man, it was going to be so good. I mean, it the movie it plays really well. It tested
yeah.
really well. It's on. We finished it. Like it was buttoned up and done, ready to be released. And it's but yeah, Wile E. Coyote, like he comes up with this idea to he sees like like a 1-800 like a commercial lawyer on
Yeah.
TV who's specifically playing toward getting money for tunes who are getting like messed up by getting smashed by a car and then like run over by a truck and this and that. And Will Forte is the lawyer who's great, who I've worked with a million
Oh
times now. At
yeah,
this
that's
point,
right.
it's from Gruber, and the movies are like visual cues for that movie were like The Insider. Like the movie is like the movie is like going up against like the tobacco company.
Yeah.
Crazy. Longhorn Leghorns, the evil CEO, and like it was cool. It was very cool. He kind of plays like a sort of a noirish kind of mystery, and it was fun. We were I mean it was hard not to, it was very Roger Rabbit from an approach. Like it's like a
Yeah.
little more of an adult kind of mainline story, but still family movie at its core. But like we did some dark stuff. It was fun.
Yeah, it's I forget where I had heard that. I had heard stories about it, and I was like, "That sounds amazing." I was so amped for that. That's such a bummer that it's not coming
Yeah.
out.
But I didn't mean to pull us away from the pickle movie, but yeah, it
Okay.
was the pickle movie. It was it was weird though, because it's like, you do this big kind of studio movie, and then it kind of comes out, and then it's like COVID, and like that was it. There's
It
like,
it
it's so weird, such a strange time. It
it
was
really
like it's like
was.
then you
I
get the
remember watching it because it felt like an event, and producer Lexi hasn't seen it yet, and she was like, I forget the stat that she used to figure this out, but she was like, "This has so many ratings on IMDb, like more than any movie I've ever seen." And I was like, "No," and that's when I started putting together the COVID thing, and I was like, "No, I think that
I
was
mean,
like the
didn't even know that at
first
the time.
movie. That was like the first movie that like was like, "Hey, watch this theatrical movie in your home because you can't leave." And I watched it. I If you're gonna pickle Seth Rogen, I'm gonna watch it. So
But yeah, man, it's just brine the dude. Uh, no, it was cool, and that's I mean, the whole Seth Rogen, Seth and his whole team and Evan Goldberg, they're like they're just they're great people. I've
yeah,
worked
it's
with them
cool.
many times. I love working with those guys. I mean, they asked me to direct their movie. Like they're really they're great. I mean, ever since This Is the End. I mean, that was the first time I worked with those guys.
Oh yeah.
But what's funny is that the American Pickle came off of the like arose from the ashes of a different movie I was going to direct with those guys. That we were prepping and everything, and then the whole movie job just kind of collapsed and
Oh
it just shut down. And we basically had to fire everybody, and it sucked. We didn't even start shooting yet. But as that kind of fell apart, Evan Goldberg was like, "Hey, so this movie's not going to happen, but we think you should do this one." And he like slides me the script, and I'm like, "Wait, you have this the whole time? This is awesome!" Like, 'cause it was so just that it just fit my style so much. I mean, I kind of approached American Pickle like, for me, like the blocking, everything. Like, I just wanted it to kind of feel like an episode of The Simpsons, like just in terms of like how it all kind of comes together,
yeah.
just in terms of the simplicity of it all and how it moves and feels. Um, yeah, I don't know. I loved it. I still do.
So I'm gonna I'm gonna just bring up one more thing, and if Joe, if you have any more questions, you can hit them with them. But I just have to bring this up because I'm obsessed with the Righteous Gemstones. I think it's I think it's incredible. You The next time you talk to your sister, just give her a thank you from me because the costumes on that are amazing, like out of control. And it's funny because when I saw that and then I linked your sister to it, I was like, oh my God. Every episode I watch, I'm like, imagine being the costume designer on this. This must be so fun to like dress Kelvin up like he
Dude,
does. Like that's
she
nuts.
did such a good job. I mean, my sister, like she drove so much of the tone of that movie almost completely just with like the designs and ideas that she put together for the characters. Uh,
I agree, but I think
I
you did too. I mean, you did the first episode. Now, I don't know if pilots are even a thing anymore, but that was
yeah,
already ordered. Okay, I don't know if that was a pilot or not, or if they had already gotten the order for all the episodes, but
it was a
um,
pilot.
it was a pilot.
Mhm.
Your your work on that is nuts, and I think it set. I think after that they were like, I truly believe this. I was like, I think this is like they're like, this is what we need to do because you had these shots. I mean, the show is like the laughs per minute are nuts. Like it's just bit after bit. But then you have these scenes where you're like shooting John Goodman at a table in the most serious and like dim lighting, and it's like these like beautifully shot things, and then at the same time they're talking about who knows what, like something insane, like
Sure.
Danny McBride will burst in and just be like,
Yeah, for
but
Danny and
it's
I,
set this amazing tone, these and you shot the first time they ever walk into that restaurant, which is like now a thing that they do
I did.
every
Yeah.
season, and to me it's like the highlight of every season is when they walk in.
I shot it when it was a real restaurant before they built it on stage.
Oh really?
Yeah, the that pilot episode is marvelous. I'm so stoked with how that turned out. It's
Yeah,
an
I
and it
think
was
it's one of the
we
best like first episodes of a show like
and
I've
it's an
ever
hour
seen.
long. It's an hour-long comedy
Hmm.
episode, and,
Yeah.
big and expensive, I think that I don't remember if it was, like, ordered to series immediately. I think they still needed the pilot first before it was, like, official. But I'm based on Danny's track record with HBO with Eastbound and Down and Vice Principals, I think everyone sort of knew that Gemstones was going to just be the next Danny, McBride thing. But he reached out to me to do it, and like, because I knew him from This Is the End again, and our touchstone for the pilot for me was just the master. That's all that we looked at was the master. Like that was,
Okay.
it's like, I mean, it's not. It doesn't look like that exactly, but it was like we just wanted these. We wanted scope. We wanted it to be grand. So I shot it with a big, with a large sensor camera, just for the sake of making it look big and wide, and shot with these, large format lenses. I wasn't afraid to let it be dark. I mean, there's that whole sequence at the end in the parking lot in the first episode when there's this
So
like
good.
that's one of my favorite things I've done in a long time, and that was actually a good scene where we had to solve a problem, and by solving a problem, we made the whole episode like better. Like at the end of the episode, I remember we had this whole action sequence plan because it's like they have to trade the bags and get the money and this and that, and
Yeah.
then somebody gets shot, and then they drive over somebody, and then they like get the money and then run over someone else again and then like escape. But we didn't have enough time. We were like, man, how are we gonna do this? And I remember kicking out the idea, like, I don't remember if it was my idea to start, but I definitely said, like, look, because I had also shot the pilot for Barry, the
Oh my God.
Bill Hader
So
show.
good.
And part of what we did on Barry was we wanted the violence to be very like matter of fact and like registered and like wide and just letting it happen, which makes it feel way like ickier and more
Yeah.
vicious and being shaky and crazy and whatever and being less cinematic about it. It feels like real. We're like, oh God,
Yeah.
no. Like and I remember like pitching that sort of idea, and we ended up turning that whole sequence into one shot. It's like one crane shot where you see the car like run over a dude, and the actors pull in, and then they switch places in the chair, and then they
Yeah.
go and he like goes back to chase down the guy that's still alive, and then we boom up into the air and he runs him over and then runs him over again and like leaves the whole scene. It was really vicious and hard to watch. And it was hard to do because we had to do it in multiple passes. We didn't have motion control. We had to figure out how to make the crane move at the same time with the same action of the stunt guys doing this and that, and VFX put it together really well. But like, I think it took us a good better part of 3 hours just to do that one shot,
Oh wow.
or but it would have taken us a whole day to shoot it how we had planned it, which was just like an action movie otherwise. So, but Righteous Gemstones, man, like it was. I came back to the Righteous Gemstones to shoot more on season 3. They hired me to shoot. I got a call, like, it was, like, 2 weeks before they were wrapping up season 3, and the second unit DP had gone down with COVID, and they're like, "Okay, can you just come in and fill in? We know you're out of work. Can you come in and, like, just fill in for a couple days and, like, hang out? Just shoot, come back and hang out with us." We're like, "Yeah, great. That sounds like fun." I get there, and the day that I'm there, like, the main unit DP, ended up going down with a separate illness, and it was like, all of a sudden, they're all staring at me like, "Hey, we don't have a DP. Could you just finish the season for us?" And I was like, "What?" Like, it's kind of crazy because it's like that's a lot of pressure because it's all of a sudden I'm
Yeah.
going up, I'm getting handed sides, and I'm like learning what I'm shooting that day. I haven't looked at it at all. I haven't prepped it. The whole crew does. They know it, but like, and I worked with a lot of them before, so it was a little bit of, but it had been like 4 years since I'd done the pilot.
Yeah.
But like the scene I show up to shoot, I don't know. Did you see season 3? Have you seen
I
season 3?
yes, multiple times.
Okay, so you know,
I'm telling you, like I love that show. It's
dude,
just like
the,
perfect.
the naked fight.
Oh my God, that's
So I
that's
show up.
so
I
nuts.
show up when I shoot the naked fight. This is what we're doing. Oh my god, this is crazy. And that among other things, I think I shot different because they block shoot. They shoot every episode any day of the week. So I think I shot sequences from like 6 or 7 different episodes, but that sequence in particular was like bananas. And I mean, I was like quietly having a panic attack because I'm like, how am I going to do this? I don't like this is a whole fight sequence. Oh my god, but it turned out great.
Yeah,
Um,
dude. I had a few scenes written down in that first episode, and that the final scene was obviously one of them. But the wave pool at the beginning is just like one of the
yeah,
funniest ways to start a show. Like it set up everything. It was just so awesome, and I was just like, and then now I rewatched it today because I was like, I can't believe you did this episode. So I rewatched it this afternoon, and I was just like, I'm like looking now at it from like the cinematography point of view, and I'm like, that wave pool scene is so nuts. And then the lights are all going off when it
uh,
because they're at the theme park, and it's just like chaos. And I was like, That's incredible. What an incredible like.
That was our last day of shooting on that episode. I
Oh,
remember.
was it?
Like a long, crazy day at this like wave pool somewhere in South Carolina outside of outside of shit. Where was it? Anyway, shoot everywhere.
Yeah.
It's easy to remember where we are. Um, Charleston. Shit, of course. But yeah, the Righteous Gemstones. I was so proud of how that turned out. It turned out so
It
good.
came out great.
I was, but speaking of, but the costumes, man, my sister did such a good job. I was surprised there was no like award recognition because it was so like insanely done with
I
what she
don't
did.
understand how either. They're so elaborate. And in every shot they've got something more insane on than the next scene. Every season I'm like, what is Kelvin gonna wear in that like first scene? Like it's gonna be something
Oh man,
absurd. And she nails like that, what do you call it? That area of the world, right? That like the ministry thing, like she nails it. Like
it's
she
that
gets to
whole
hit like she
church
gets to
thing.
pull from all of them, right? Like
Mhm.
the hillside church for like Kelvin, and then like the classic minister stuff, and then baby Billy's outfits. Like I could like I can't tell you, like literally every episode I watch, I'm always like, man, imagine getting to do these costumes. Like this is so crazy.
It is. It's bananas. Um,
Joe, did you have anything you wanted to hit on?
Yeah, I had two last quick questions for you. In the Disaster Artist, what was your approach to creating the iconic look and feel of the room while maintaining a fresh cinematic style?
hmm. Well, it's funny. I remember trying to come up with the approach with Franco for Disaster Artist, and we similarly had like very little time to shoot this movie. They had like a lot of locations and just a lot of set pieces, and we kind of worked backwards from knowing what we could do, uh, or at least maximize what we could do, and kind of also let that be the style of the movie. And I think that's where we landed on the, because it's so handheld based and almost documentary
Right.
based, and like I wanted it to have like a cinematic documentary. Like I wanted it to feel like you're a fly on the wall in the middle of every moment of that movie, as if you're just like right there with these characters in these rooms. And we shot in a lot of real locations and in small places, and we let that be the kind of guiding light of the style. Something else I wanted to do was also shoot almost every scene of that movie. We found a way to shoot a master that was like a single take, where you could have just used one take and kind of gotten away with the whole scene. Obviously, we still shot coverage, and there's a lot of that's in the movie. There's a handful of those long takes in the movie where it just holds and moves and follows with. And I don't always operate on the movies that I work on because I usually use multiple cameras, and I need to kind of I need to be able to see what's going on in both lenses so that I can keep some kind of quality control and know what I've got and what we're doing. But I operated most of that movie as well, and because I just really wanted, it was kind of the only way that I could really put my like fingers all over it in a way where I could really control the timing and the pacing and the moves of the camera. We had an additional camera as well that we would always run, but it was we took a lot of influence from the Dutch. Are they Dutch? The Dutch filmmaking the Dardenne brothers.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know where they're
We were
from.
watching some of those movies too. It's just like it has like this kind of verite sort of handheld thing, and that was the approach for the movie. Now, the room itself, the room within the room, that was something that we didn't actually totally plan on being so exact, if that makes
Oh, that's
sense.
interesting. Yeah.
Well, in the movie, it's awesome in the movie when they're like running the scene side by side. You can kind of see like how
I
close we got
love that
where
part.
it
Yeah.
is. Now, we never planned for that to happen, but I was definitely pretty. I pushed very hard to be as exact as possible. I remember
That's
being there
awesome.
with like my laptop with the room, and I'd play it, and Franco, and I'd be like, "No, you got to lift your hand faster here with this line, and then look this way." And then we would, because we were trying to like, honestly, it was hard to do. And the other part is that we didn't somehow those recreations, because they knew it had to play in the movie at the end of the film, and that's all that we shot it for. We didn't shoot it again for that thing at the end, but we somehow we for it like it was an oversight that we had to schedule all that stuff to shoot also. So we'd schedule the whole movie, and then went, wait a minute. how are we going to fit in the room part of this movie? We don't have any time to do it. So we had to like earn the time each day to get onto those sets and shoot another scene of the room. So we would shoot as fast as we could so that we could get there and shoot a couple of shots just to get one of the iconic moments out of the way. And we did. We got so much. I mean, I think we shot like 25 minutes of the movie or something.
It was incredible. The end was
And
so good.
it was remarkably difficult to like match the lighting because it was just so, it's just so like indie bad. I mean, it was
One of a
just,
kind.
and I had a handful of people on my crew that were on the room. Like we were so meta with that movie in many ways. I mean, my operator, Jesse Feldman was one of the was a camera assistant on the room when it
Oh,
shot.
that's so cool.
I think one of our electricians were like I was looking up what cameras they were using, and we are getting really specific. We were shooting in a soundstage that was just like one block away from the original one. The original one wasn't available, otherwise we would have shot there.
Yeah.
But like we shot in so many places, and Greg Sestero, who plays Mark, like he was there every step of the way, man. He was like our he was like the he was sort of our guru to help us out with any kind of question we had about making it
That's
real or if it was feeling right. And like he was awesome. The
That's
weirdest
so
part was shooting Franco and Wiseau in the same frame, improving with each other, both as the same character. Like that was crazy. Uh,
Yeah.
um, Speaking of crazy, I'm not. He has a very unique business sense, and if you know about the Disaster Artist, the book, or his deal, he's very he has an interesting way about making cash. So we had, I think it was part of the deal to shoot him in the movie, and we shot his scene very modularly. Like we knew, like okay, like we can't just put him in the movie because it's just gonna blow it. Like it's not gonna. His
Yeah.
deal is so specific. We can't put him in the same movie with Franco doing him in the same. So we filmed him separately in like a party scene or something like that, where we knew we could just kind of lift it. But I think part of the deal was to like shoot it, shoot him out. But he knew we didn't have to use it, but he had to do it. So great, we shot it. It was great. It was neat to do.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think they got around to finishing the movie, and they were putting together all the footage that we had shot to play on screen on the theater at the end of the film. And they realized that they didn't have the actual licensing for the music of the score that he uses in the room. And we wanted to put
Oh,
the same music on the footage we shot. So of course Tommy's like, "Yeah, I'll give you the licensing, but you got to put my scene back in the movie."
oh shit.
And then so it ends up being a bumper at the end of the credits, which is great. It's kind of like where it was perfectly put. It should have
Yeah.
been. But it was just funny that like to the very end, like he is always Tommy Wiseau, man. It's fantastic. Remember, we wanted to rent because he still has all the set flats, all the walls, all the props, everything from the room. He has it stored somewhere. And we were going to try to like rent them from him to be like how this could be crazy meta if we do that. But he wanted to charge us like $100,000 or something for it. We're like, yeah, okay, we're not even gonna talk about this. We're gonna just build our own thing. Really funny. Yeah,
I love that.
man.
Yeah. And then just real quick, personal question. If you had to choose just one, and you mentioned one earlier, are you going with Astro Creep or Last Sexorcista?
I mean, I think it would probably have to be Astro Creep for me, just because that was the one. That was my first one. Like, there's no getting away from the nostalgia factor of just like my first White Zombie record, But
Sure, that makes sense.
God,
Yeah, but Welcome to Planet Motherfucker. That's like the greatest opening song ever, man.
it's true. It's true. Amazing.
That's awesome.
Wow. Well, did we talk about enough horror stuff? I feel like I kind of went on too many tangents about other things.
No, I mean
No, that was great, man.
Trust me, that's again.
That's our MO. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
last week was supposed to be about The Ring, and we spent 15 minutes on American Pie. And
Oh, great.
what else did we talked about something else since then. Oh, the John Travolta Coca-Cola.
The Santa Claus commercial.
Santa Claus that he just did.
Oh, you guys didn't ask about Chaos. Do you know about Chaos? Do you know what that is?
I think so. No.
Well, I'll leave you with that.
Okay.
You should investigate Chaos.
Oh.
And then come back to me with more questions.
Are you? Yeah. So I was gonna say I would love to have you back on because your insight is great. Let's last thing. I want to ask this other question, but 3 movies people should watch. What are you picking for them to check out?
Oh my god, just like in general,
Yeah.
like any movie, anytime.
Yeah. Anytime, any movie.
Oh my god, this is too hard. um, oh dear. Oh my god, man, put me on the spot. It's so hard. So funny. Immediately my mind goes to puppets. I'm like, Dark Crystal, Labyrinth.
Oh,
I mean, those
Man.
are two great ones.
I love the Dark Crystal series. It's fantastic.
Muppets Take
Um,
Manhattan.
I know. I almost got to shoot the Sesame Street movie, and then that fell apart.
Oh,
Where the dreams finished.
oh, and we do have to have you on. Actually, this is when we bring you back. Is when Naked Gun. Are you? Did you do that, or are you working on that?
We shot it, and I think we're still gonna do some pickups in a little bit, but it's fantastic. I would say if you're a
I
Naked
can't
Gun
wait.
fan,
Yeah, you're.
Well, Naked Gun
We have to have you back on for that. That's
we've done. I think we've done Naked Gun justice.
perfect.
Awesome. Can't
we
wait.
gotta have you on for that. So, and then you can
So-
answer the 3 movie question.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'll still put Conan in there because I just love that movie forever.
Yeah, sure.
So Chaos is an unofficial remake of Last House on the Left.
Yeah.
I've never seen this.
You should see that movie. You should watch the commentary with it. You should get your hands on any sort of like spoken word business about that movie, and then you could probably do a whole episode just on the worst experience of my life ever making a movie.
Oh, shit.
Wow. All right. Let's do it. Let's watch Chaos and have them back.
Oh, Sage Stallone. All right, let's go.
Yeah, man. You can let that one slip through the cracks.
All right, we'll definitely do it. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us. For real, it was so much fun talking to you. That was.
Yeah,
I think
thanks.
our
It was
listeners are
fun.
gonna love it. Yeah, we'll
For
definitely
bringing
bring
back
you
all my weird memories.
I think we're doing a show in LA soon, so when we do, maybe we bring you on for that.
Yeah,
Have some fun.
of course.
fun.
Hit me up. Awesome.
All right, awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was great.
All right, cool. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks.
Cause I'm a whorehound, hellbound horror movie lover. I like my voyeurism with a glass of red rum, cause I'm a